sound. Devo Jones with the pick six, Keanu Neal with the hard hit, getting the ball back on offense. Watch Julio Jones keep moving the sticks. Calvin really in for the score. We came back, we up 4, about to get in. Our victory stats, no coming back. We closing the door. A-T-L, blackout. A-T-L, blackout.
What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another rendition of the Pound for Pound Coaches Edition. Yes, I'm back again with another head coaching profile. Last week we did Arthur Smith, and y'all seemed to really enjoy that. So, as I said last week, we're going to try to do this once a week until the end of the season, or until a new head coach is named. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive on into it. As I previously stated last week, I'm not a huge fan of getting a coach from the college ranks. It tends not to work out very well. With few exceptions, you can say that Pete Carroll worked out really well, but he had previous experience in the league before he came back to the league from USC. Some of the other ones were the former Eagles coach. If y'all ever watched that movie Invincible with Mark Wahlberg, that guy had a pretty decent amount of success. Someone, Vitale, I think, or I can't remember his last name. Anywho, that guy had a decent amount of success, and there have been other coaches that have had decent amount of success coming from the college ranks, but far too many times these coaches that come up from college, they're so used to having total control over the organization that they come from that's just not how it works in the NFL. So they tend to have a very tough time transitioning. Even some of the more like high profile coaches that I was thinking of, like the most famous, I guess you could say, would be a Nick Saban when he coached the Miami Dolphins. It was an absolute disaster. But as you know, he's gone on to have a ton of success at Alabama. So just because a coach has success at the college level doesn't always mean it's going to translate. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of pulling coaches who don't have any prior NFL experiences back into the NFL or into the NFL in general. But today's candidate is just that. He's a young and up-and-coming coach, formerly of Toledo, now of Ohio State. His name is Matt Campbell. He's a coach that has come into Iowa State and really stabilized and made that program relevant in a way. It's really hard to say. Ohio State's not like super relevant. They haven't won a ton of games or been highly ranked, but they have been ranked and they have beat some credible teams, right? But before we get into that, let's talk about his time at Toledo. In Toledo, he took over as offensive coordinator there, from offensive coordinator to head coach, rather. Oversaw Kareem Hunt and had him rushing for over 1,000 yards. His quarterbacks at Toledo completed over 60% passer rating. They scored nearly 30 points a game every game on average. So those are good things to consider while at a school like Toledo. He makes the jump from Toledo to Iowa State, sorry. He makes the jump to Iowa State from Toledo, and then 2 times since he's been there has been the Big 12 Coach of the Year. He's been an AP Coach of the Year. So he's getting all the accolades. But you say, JR, well, his team isn't necessarily like being dominant and blowing doors and stuff like that. But that's not necessarily what I look for in a coach, and especially a coach coming from the college ranks. Because you may hear me, say more than once that I don't pay a ton of attention to college while it's, being played, because I think the system is heavily favored for the coaches and teams that have been winning, right? The Alabamas, the Clemsons, the USCs when they were on top, the Notre Dames, even though Notre Dame hardly ever does much of anything year in and year out. But the college system itself, because you don't necessarily get to, I don't know, the talent pool is much bigger, I guess is what I'm getting at. So you don't have a concentration of talent like you do in the NFL. So the rich get richer in college. Like a kid who is worth anything wants to go play for a Nick Saban or wants to go play for a Dabo Swinney because they want to win, right? So they don't go to, Iowa State's or Iowa's or the TCU's or whatever, because they want to win national championships. And the system itself is kind of rigged for, that. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I'm getting off on college football politics. But anyway, Matt Campbell, like I said before, he was able to stabilize Ohio State, do things for that program that program's never had. Had multiple years with QBs higher than 65% completion ratings, and back-to-back years with over 1,000 yards rushing from the running back position. Not necessarily one running back, but just the position in general. Now, I mentioned, Kareem Hunt, his work with him, and another wide receiver is Alan Lazard from Green Bay, played under Matt Campbell. So these are like pros that he is, his programs have been able to produce. So you're asking yourself, JR, why are we talking about, Matt Campbell in relation to the Atlanta Falcons? I think a guy who has been able to come in and stabilize programs from Toledo to Ohio State, or I keep saying Iowa State, I think could come in and stabilize, the Atlanta Falcons in the sense of it's a safe pick. Now, if we hire this guy, I don't think he's necessarily going to blow anybody's skirt up, so to speak, or super impress anybody with his resume, but I see it as a stabilizing safe pick, or a safe hire with an eye towards the future. And what I mean by that is, as we have been talking about it, it's been all the buzz, Matt Ryan has only got about 3 more years or so, 4 more years tops, I would think. So realistically, you have 2 to 3 years with Matt Ryan at the helm, and then you're going to have to groom a new quarterback and groom a quarterback from potentially the college ranks. And so bringing in a coach to be able to groom a new quarterback, a college quarterback, one that has experience dealing with college quarterbacks, may not necessarily be a bad thing. And also, like, if he were to bring, I would assume that he would bring his OC, I believe his name is Todd Manning, with him as well. He was with him at Toledo and is still with him at Iowa State. So I would imagine that he would bring him along with him to help coach. And that guy is a very balanced offensive coordinator. As I mentioned before, he has had multiple years of running backs with over 1,000 yards, whether it be one running back in Kareem Hunt or multiple running backs. They have very balanced system. And that's something that, especially right now with our current OC and Dirk Cutter, that I would welcome. Welcome a coach that, actually wants to run the ball and more than just pay lip service to it. A coach that can incorporate it as part of his game plan. So to me, Matt Campbell could be an interesting pickup. He was offered jobs by Urban Meyer and Scott Pioli when he was in the Patriots organization. I believe it's the Patriots organization. But, so he's kind of a hot commodity in a sense. He's not a guy that has been, overlooked, but I feel like he's a guy that many of our fans may not have ever heard of. I know a few years ago, before they hired Adam Gase, the Jets reached out to him to see if he would be interested. So as of this point, he's been more interested in staying at the college ranks. So you may not be able to get this guy, but the part that intrigued me is what he's been able to do at these lower level schools. So you just take a look at what Matt Rule did at Baylor after that Art Briles incident down there. He was able to come in and stabilize that school and then produce, ultimately an 11-5 season, which, catapulted him into the ranks of the NFL. So you take what Matt Rule did, and I feel like Matt Campbell is kind of in that same stratosphere as what Matt Rule was. I don't necessarily think it's like a Cliff Kingsbury situation where they brought him on because they knew they were going to draft Kyler Murray, and he had previous experience with Kyler Murray. So I feel like the Matt Campbell would be closer to a Matt Rule than a Cliff Kingsbury. And I think with an eye towards the future, hiring a college coach may not necessarily be a bad thing. As always, folks, I appreciate y'all's comments, y'all's likes, y'all's shares. Put down in the comments down below who you'd like me to take a look at next. I have a few ideas, but I'm always interested in hearing what y'all have to say. If you hadn't already, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128. That's GRIMM1128. You can catch us live every Tuesday night at 7:30. Me, Jimmy, and Mike, we talk about the games that have happened, the games that are coming up, just the team in general. We appreciate any sharing and support that y'all give us. And as always, Falcons fans, rise up.